So who within the UFC right now will be champion at the close of 2024? Now, as we know, 2023 is coming to a close, and we've already seen multiple championships change hands within several divisions within the UFC this year. But the question is, who's going to be champion when 2024 comes to a close? You know, by the end of next year, no doubt we're going to see some title changes, but we're just going to go over my picks personally of who I think is going to retain their titles and who I think is going to potentially drop their titles next year. All right, guys, so starting at the heavyweight division, obviously the current champion is Johnny Bones Jones. Recently had a pectoral injury, so we probably won't see him fight till mid next year at the earliest. Now, within the heavyweight division, there are some fighters that are a potential threat to John Jones's title reign. Obviously, we've got the likes of Alexander Volkov, Curtis Blades, Sergio Pavlovich, and Tom Aspinall. So there's definitely some fantastic fighters in there that are more well-rounded than what Cyril Gane was that could potentially dethrone Jones. But the issue that I see with that is that it seems to be Stipe Miocic versus John Jones that is going to take place next year instead. And if that's the case, that means John Jones is only going to have one fight next year. And in all likelihood, that's going to be against Stipe Miocic, the former heavyweight champion. And if I think that's the case, I think we're still going to see John Jones as the heavyweight champion at the end of 2024. But that all depends if he retires, right? Now, as we know, there's a lot of time between now and then, so that fight might not take place, okay? But when I look at the heavyweight division, I just find it hard to believe that anyone within that division has the skills to be able to defeat John Jones for that heavyweight title. So I definitely think John Jones is going to retain here. Now, moving on to the light heavyweight division, we've got the current champion Hill, who's out at the moment with an injury, and he looks set to be returning to the octagon sometime in May next year. Now, with Jamal Hill, I just think he's primed for the picking at the moment, obviously with a bit of a layoff. I mean, the people within his division, my God, you know, I've got Proaska, Pereira, Blachowicz. There are some absolute killers within that division. You know, I find it very difficult to believe that Hill's going to be able to retain his title next year, especially after the long layoff. And if he's returning in May, he might have 2 title defenses that year. And it's just going to be a tough ask in my opinion. I think by the end of next year, we're definitely going to be seeing a new champion. And my pick for that is Alex Pereira. Now, moving on to the middleweight division, the current champion, Sean Strickland, obviously became champion after a massive upset win over Israel Adesanya. That was a fantastic moment, but I just don't see Sean Strickland retaining that middleweight title, you know. The middleweight division is one of the most stacked divisions within the UFC right now. Obviously, we've still got Israel Adesanya, who's on a break, so he's probably not going to face him for the title anytime soon, but as you move down the rankings, you know, we've got Duplessis, we've got Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vettori. We've also got the likes of Khamzat Chimaev moving up the ranks, Bo Nichols on the outskirts somewhere. I mean, when you look down even the top 10, top 15 fighters within that division, it's murderer's row. You know what I mean? I just find it very difficult to believe that Sean Strickland will be able to retain his title, but time will tell, you know, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see a new champion by the end of 2024 in the middleweight division. Now, moving on to the welterweight division, we've got Leon Edwards, and he'll be facing off against Kobe Covington for that strap before this year's out. Now, guys, I think Leon Edwards is absolutely incredible, and I think he's going to get over the line against Kobe Covington. There is a lot of competition coming up within that welterweight division that's definitely going to be able to test Leon Edwards. We've got the rising star Shavkat Rakhmonov, who's an absolute killer. Guy's currently undefeated, and he'll be facing off against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, so we're definitely going to find out a lot about him there. And we've also got Bilal Muhammad sitting at that weight class. Now, by 2024's close, granted, there are a lot of fighters within the welterweight division that do pose some serious threats to Leon Edwards, but I think he's definitely going to retain that title for some time to come yet. Now, moving on to the lightweight division, we've got the current champion, Islam Makhachev. I mean, what more can we say about this guy? An absolutely fantastic fighter. And in one of the toughest divisions within the UFC, he's absolutely dominating. And his skill sets are so diverse. You know, everyone just thought he was another Khabib Nurmagomedov, you know, one-dimensional wrestler. But it turns out the guy can strike. The guy can absolutely do it all. This guy's going to be a dominant champion. He's going to be a dominant champion for quite some time. Not only do I think he's still going to retain his title by the close of 2024, but I think potentially moving into 2025, he's still going to be champion by the end of that year. I just find it very hard to see someone or anyone ranked in that lightweight division now getting a win over Islam Makhachev, considering how well-rounded he is. Now, moving on to the featherweight division, we've got Alexander Volkanovski. As we know, Alexander Volkanovski has been a dominant champion at that weight class for quite some time. And that weight class definitely has some up and rising stars that can pose a threat to Alexander Volkanovski. Not to mention he's getting on in age now. Max Holloway in there. Maybe we'll see a fourth fight between them. Yair Rodriguez he's beaten. Brian Ortega he hasn't faced in some time, but the rising stars that we've still yet to see Alexander Volkanovski face is Arnold Allen and Topuria. Now, I hate to say it, guys, but I think Alexander Volkanovski is going to drop the title some stage in 2024. If it's not against Topuria, it'll be against someone else, guys. Look, when he's aging the way he is, he knows he's on borrowed time. He knows he's getting on there in age. So I just don't think that he's going to be able to keep up that dominant reign that he's had. He's already been a champion for quite some time, and as we know, the longer you stay champion, it's just a matter of odds, right, that eventually you are going to drop that title. I mean, when you look at Israel Adesanya, no one expected him to lose the title to Sean Strickland, but here we are. All right. So unfortunately, Alexander Volkanovski will not be champion by the end of 2024. Now, the final weight class that we're going to be having a look at is the bantamweight division. As we know, the current champion is Sean O'Malley after beating Aljamain Sterling via TKO. And this is another division that's just got murderers row. I think bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, middleweight, they all have so many fantastic fighters. Hence why in 2023, we've seen so many title changes. And I think for Sean O'Malley, I don't think he's going to be able to retain that title by the end of 2024 because we've got a lot of great wrestlers within that division. Henry Cejudo's still around. We've got Marab, Corey Sandhagen, Peter Yan. Granted, he's already had a victory over Peter Yan, but everyone within that division that I see is just absolutely incredible. Very, very competitive with Sean O'Malley, and he doesn't have the best wrestling. So I think Sean O'Malley is going to drop the title by the end of 2024, probably against one of the wrestlers within the bantamweight division, but that's my thoughts on who's going to retain their titles, who's going to drop their titles by the end of 2024. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.